Welcome to the Big MJ Debate, the show that debates the most exciting, diversive, controversial, and hilarious goings-on within the Michael Jackson fan community. I'm Pez Jax, and once again, I'm delighted to be joined by both of my co-hosts. She's the Scottish siren that you won't find riding a carousel. It's Charles McLachlan.
Hi.
And instead of going out to some restaurant, he'll stay home in bed. It's Ilya Mazzani. This is episode 11. Let's take it to the max. Today, we're discussing a stolen laptop, a thief at large, unreleased Michael Jackson material, and a scene straight out of a movie script. But before we get into that, let's see what the hell has been going on. Friday, 27th of January, 2023. Brad Sundberg is hosting one of his In the Studio with MJ sessions as part of a 3-day event when disaster struck. During a break between sessions, one of the fans in attendance went back into the room and stole Sundberg's laptop and hard drive. He climbed out of the window, darting across the roof, breaking a skylight in his path. Some reports even suggest he may have crawled through an air vent. On the Friday evening, Sundberg released a statement detailing the events and expressed concern that the contents would be sold. However, the thief chose instead to work with a network of MJ content traders to upload the contents to YouTube and Google Drive for free download, putting hundreds of Michael Jackson files into the public domain. Among the near 50 gigabytes of files was unreleased song Chicago 1945. Also included were unfinished works Deep in the Night, Family Thing, and Faces, along with demos for songs such as I Can't Help It, Give In To Me, Someone Put Your Hand Out, and Streetwalker. Multi-tracks and acapellas for some of Michael's most famous hits, including Human Nature, You Are Not Alone, Stranger in Moscow, and Smooth Criminal, were also released. Private footage of Michael in the studio recording Childhood, creating the Dangerous album, and instructing the choir for They Don't Care About Us have also been made public. While most fans have been quick to condemn the theft and the distribution of Michael's work, questions have been raised about the ownership of the material, the estate's knowledge of the specifics of the seminar, and who, if anyone, has the right to share Michael's material with the fans either through ticket purchasing or for free. So guys, quite a lot to unpack here. Where to start? As we sort of said in the intro, this is literally out of a movie script.
You can't make this shit up, seriously.
But of course it would happen in the Michael community. Like, where else for this stuff to happen than here?
Oh, absolutely.
At this stage, you don't even need to be a fan. If you're just bored with your life and need some entertainment, come join. Casting call in progress. So, what would you say has been your reaction to the news of this theft that's happened?
I think I was originally, I kind of thought it was a joke that maybe someone had just said on Twitter. I mean, I was aware of these seminars that had been going on for a lot of years. Like, I know a lot of fans who have went to them. And I was just shocked to hear that this had happened. I don't know. At first I didn't really believe it.
No, me too, because, well, you hear about Brad's seminars, as you said, Charlotte, and I wanted to go, but then once I saw some pricing and I thought, okay. Because you don't really get to see what's actually going on there. So I wasn't sure, so I just left it for ages, and now all of this happening, I don't know what I thought of it at first, but right now I still can't wrap my head around what is actually going on.
It's interesting that you mentioned that we don't really know what's going on there. I wonder if that's a conscious decision on his part, or if he's been told he's not allowed to advertise what you'll hear. Because for me, if I had like the Childhood studio footage and Deep in the Night and Chicago 1945, which have all leaked, and I was playing those there, I would be screaming that on the poster, like, come and watch the Childhood footage.
That would definitely convince me as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans. I mean, a lot of fans that I know that have went have had nothing but good things to say about it. But I always thought that since I didn't really know a lot about what goes on at the seminars, I kind of thought that was down to my own research. But it seems like maybe a lot of people don't know, and word of mouth is how it gets around. I'm not sure.
There is an element of that, especially when you consider the price point. There's an element of that trust me, bro vibe. To be honest, if I'm going to pay £300 to meet one or two people that worked with Michael and get to hear stuff, I want to know what I'm going to hear for that money. I can't just go on the basis that, well, they knew Michael and they're going to play some stuff, because I think it's important if you buy something to know what you're going to get, right? And the whole trust me, bro thing, that doesn't work for me.
I genuinely thought we would just go there and we would just hear some stems, maybe Michael talking through, during recordings. That's all I thought we were going to. I didn't know there was footage and there was all these.
No, I thought it was more personal stories. I mean, I think there is some of that, but I thought it was mostly personal stories. I didn't even realise that this is the footage that is played at this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew of the childhood footage, and I don't know whether it's been confirmed or if it was just a rumor, but apparently the estate had stepped in the past and said, you can't play this anymore, which is interesting about, their involvement in this, which we'll get to. But I didn't realize there was as much footage as there was. Seeing footage from Dangerous album, seeing footage from History, making of the History album, I didn't realize there was so much footage there. But I guess we kind of jumped the gun a little bit, and that's my fault. But speaking of the theft as an isolated incident, do you think the fan community's response to it has been justified?
I'm really confused at it, because fans are out here arguing on Twitter and blocking each other, and it's just all hell broke loose. And I really didn't expect the same response, especially when we've had leaks in the past. And I'm just happy to be here and listening to this stuff and seeing it, because I've been hungry, and Thriller 40 just did not fill me up.
I think the response has been interesting because, as you said, there seems to be two camps, but there is also this sort of middle ground, which is probably more where I stand, which is that, of course, I can sympathise with someone having their personal belongings stolen. That's not okay. But also, this is Michael's work, and I am happy to see it in any form. And I know that that's maybe selfish on my part. I enjoy Michael in every single form. I think a lot of fans maybe agree with this in the sense that a lot of people don't care how they get it. Do you know what I mean? They just want to see the footage. Yeah. They don't care where it comes from.
Can I just add one thing though? This does not justify the fact that someone's stolen something is not okay. Nothing makes that okay, because I can't imagine what it feels like to have your laptop that costs over £1,000, which is a MacBook Pro, I hear. It's just wild,
Agreed. I mean, I think that, sort of as we were mentioning at the beginning, speaking of the theft as an isolated incident, so taking away Michael and the material, and we will come to that, the theft itself is horrific and it's inexcusable and it's a crime. Okay, somebody walked in and stole something that wasn't theirs and left. That's a crime. And that needs to be treated like a crime. And we can't justify the reason for doing that, because this kind of self-anointed quest to go out and acquire something, like, we didn't ask for a vigilante. And I don't like the idea that this is kind of being masked as like a vigilante going out doing something for the, like, no, you've committed a crime, and that needs to be clear.
And I also think people do that, or the person that has done this under the guise of, I'm doing this for the Michael fans, and I'm doing this because everyone deserves to see this. And it's like, well, actually, no, you're doing it for clout, you're doing it for likes, you're doing it for follows, you're doing it for retweets or upvotes, or where, I don't know where this guy posts his stuff.
And clearly real time.
He doesn't do it under an anonymous profile. Do you know what I mean? He wants everyone to know who he is.
Yeah, and that's, I think, as you said earlier, I can't imagine what it must be like for Brad to know that his laptop has been stolen, because there will be obviously Michael's material on there for the seminars, but there's also his personal stuff on there. There'll be family photos, there'll be, work-related things. And so to know that that's in someone else's hands, even if they haven't posted it, is worrying. I have been following as much of the story as I can online. I know that on one of the fan forums, the perpetrator was actually posting and detailing what they'd done and when they'd done it and how they'd done it. With the theft itself, it begs this question regarding the material that's on it. Who do you think is the legitimate owner of the Michael Jackson material that Brad presents and had on this laptop?
My argument would be that the owner is always Michael. When it comes to the video footage, I don't know, because it's hard, because it's not as if it's a secret camera. Michael's aware of the camera. He talks to it. I don't know though, was there ever an agreement in place that footage would never be seen? Was there an agreement that Michael would have to okay it? It's hard to say, in my opinion, who's the owner of the video footage. But when it comes to the music, I would say the owner was Michael.
I mean, I think with the video footage, we don't know the inner workings of this, but my understanding would be that if you are working for Michael Jackson on a Michael Jackson album session, you're being paid by the record company or by Michael or by Michael's machine, right? So you're technically there on his dime. So if you're filming him and you're one of his workers, then if he's paying you at the end of that day, then he kind of owns that footage. It's kind of, I know in a lot of UK work contracts, I can't speak for the US, that anything you create within your working day belongs to the company. But I did find a quote online actually from Bill Bottrell back from 2009 when they were talking about studio sessions, and Bill was asked about filming in the studio. And Bill said, there was often a handheld video camera shot by a trusted employee like Brad. Occasionally, a full film crew would come in, as in the Andre Crouch choir session for Earth Song. So he says a trusted employee. So my understanding would be that if Brad was an employee of Michael and was filming it, then even though he is pointing and shooting, Michael is the owner of that footage.
That's interesting.
If Michael was alive, would MJ in the studio seminars be still happening? Would that still be a thing? Because probably not. Because this stuff was Michael's private stuff, right? So,
I think there's always an argument with stuff from the vault when it comes to footage, when it comes to music. Obviously, we love that the estate puts stuff out, and I'm never going to disagree with that. I think Blood on the Dance Floor for me is a prime example of why stuff should come out of the vault, right? Because Michael did Blood on the Dance Floor for Dangerous, and he was like, nah, I'm putting that in the vault. And then when it came out in 97, it's like top 3 in his catalogue of music ever, if you ask me. So therefore, it justifies stuff coming out of the vault. With that said, I think even when he had the opportunity to just make money off of stuff, he chose not to. So if you take Thriller 25 as an example, Michael didn't put unreleased outtakes from Thriller on that. He chose to go and do those horrible tracks with will.i.am. But what I'm getting at is that if Michael had shot all this footage for History Making Of and Dangerous Making Of, he never did anything with it, even when he needed cash. So why is it okay for someone else to do something with it now that he's not here?
But it's an argument that crops up even when the estate do it, isn't it? That, Michael wouldn't want these songs out there. Michael wouldn't want it done like this. Michael wouldn't want it done like that. So it's a recurring argument.
I would say for me, the way I view it is the only difference here is that in the absence of Michael, whether we like it or not, the legal entity that now represents Michael and his interests is the estate. So whilst Michael himself may not have opened the vault and put this stuff out, his legal entity have a legal right to choose to do that. It may be against Michael's wishes. What I'm getting at is I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying even if it's against Michael's personal wish, they have legal right to do that.
Yeah.
Does everybody who has access to something MJ in their possession have a right to exploit it financially? And I think that's probably a bigger question, because I know, I just want to touch on this. I don't know if you guys remember the last photo shoot documentary that was meant to come out, which showed the making of L'Uomo Vogue and Ebony magazine. The estate stepped in and said, no, you cannot release this documentary. You don't have a right to this footage. And I have the quote here from the estate's lawyer, who said, the makers of the documentary are attempting to exploit footage and photographs of Michael Jackson, which we believe are owned by his estate. The documentary contains footage of Michael during private moments that he never agreed could be publicly and commercially exploited without his consent and or involvement. Michael never authorized or approved the use of this material in the film. So the takeaway point from that for me is that Michael never agreed that this could be publicly or commercially exploited without his consent. The childhood footage initially was played, and then my understanding, again, there's no verification for it, is that the estate said it couldn't be played. Regarding all the other footage, there's been no evidence to suggest that the estate have prevented that. So when we were talking about it on Twitter, somebody jumped in and gave their thoughts, and I just want to share them so that we're not putting words in anybody's mouth. This fan said, Brad went through extensive processes to protect the material and work with the estate for their integrity. So we obviously asked in response, thanks for sharing, does Brad specifically mention at his events that the estate are on board with his sessions and give their full approval? And this person said, yes, the estate know very well what he's doing, and they caught on the second he started doing it, and they've had this arrangement for all these years. That's why he does it the way he does. Should also note that this person who replied works with Brad on the LA in the studio sessions. So, perhaps that's a really good insight. But then that opens up for me another question of, if the estate are okay with that, why are the estate okay to create a paywall which only fans who can afford it have access to Michael's material?
Yeah, and also, as far as I'm aware, money that is made from these seminars goes to Brad, not the estate. So isn't that money that could be going in the estate's pocket?
Unless they are getting paid. We
don't know. Yeah, we don't know.
No.
This is the thing. For someone's personal content to be stolen off any personal device like his laptop is a violation. That's a violation. If someone stole your phone, stole your laptop with all your things on it, you would feel violated. However, I have seen a lot of people making the argument that Michael is being violated in this process because he hasn't given permission for this footage, these songs, to be leaked or even played during these seminars. So,
do you know, I think that's been, and I know we've discussed this off camera, probably the biggest thing that's pissed me off with this whole scenario is that Michael keeps getting forgotten in all of this. It's, rightly so. There's a lot of poor Brad, because Brad's laptop has been stolen. And as we've said again and again, and we're going to have to keep saying it because I don't want to be misquoted or paraphrased, but that must feel awful. And we do not justify in any way, shape or form the stealing of Brad's laptop and hard drive. That's horrendous. Mm-hmm. Michael's material, not Brad's material, Michael Jackson's material, Michael's vocal, Michael's demos, footage of Michael was on that laptop and on that hard drive. And where does he fit into all this? Where does poor Michael fit into all this? If we are accepting that Michael didn't want this stuff out there, then this has been a gross violation of his privacy and his personal material and his information. But then on the flip side of that, if it's okay to exhibit at a seminar where tickets are purchased, then I don't quite know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're trying
exactly
to say.
What you mean.
What you mean is, it's not as if this was all just put out to the public in the way it has been. Now, that wasn't the original way that this was shown to people. The way that it was shown to people originally was obviously paying fans who love Michael, who want to see this content and know him. It's not as if it was just put out to the world and said, oh, have it, have it, have it. It's obviously people who have some form of respect for Michael, you would think. Is that...
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think completely that. If all this footage and all this music and all these multi-tracks were just locked in a vault somewhere and had never been heard, and this was the first time somebody had broken somebody's house, stole them and leaked them, and this is the first time they were coming out anywhere in the world. But this is not the first time people have heard them. They've heard them, but only behind a paywall. So yeah, I guess, but again, it doesn't justify the theft and upload of it. It's a very diversive topic, and sometimes I feel like I feel one way about it, and then I start to think more, and I shift to another way, and then someone else will say something, and I'll go, "Oh yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think of that."
Same goes to other songs. There's so many, and we all have those songs, and we all listen to it, and I don't know what I don't know, why do we sympathize with Brad so much? Because to me, this is the same thing.
I agree, and I think that's where we've been talking as well, and we put it on our Twitter, that there has been a strange kind of middle ground that's been found with all of this. Mm-hmm. A leak is a leak. It's been stolen, regardless of whether you know the context in which it's been stolen or you don't. So Chicago 1945, we know, was stolen from Brad's laptop. The guy climbed out the window, ran across the skylight, climbed through an air vent. We now know the story. Hot Street was also stolen. We don't know the story. And I've found that when I have spoken with people who are, shouting about the leaks from Brad's seminars, they're saying, yes, but Hot Street's different because it was a different time and it was we know Brad, so we can sympathize with Brad. It's like, okay, but then based on that argument, if somebody doesn't know Brad and doesn't know how this laptop was stolen, they should be able to enjoy Chicago 1945 completely guilt-free, correct?
Thank you very much. And
but then it's...
Yeah, but you know the story.
If we're going to make the argument that stealing is wrong, it's wrong in every capacity. It can't just be when we know the person and they're a nice person.
Let's remember, and I mention this often, and I will keep mentioning this. Brian Loren has said multiple times that he went to the estate with his unreleased material, which includes She Got It and Work That Body, and they had no interest in using it. He also said that having seen that has been on the internet for a long time and how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of streams and plays it's had, and he's not made a single penny off of it. Whereas if it was released officially, he would. Mm-hmm. But everybody loves She Got It. Everybody loves Work That Body, and nobody is saying, hey, don't play that. That violates Brian Loren. We know that Brian Loren has been screwed over. But everyone's okay with that. Or maybe they're not. Maybe I just haven't come across the people that aren't. But
it can't. That's exactly right, because it can't be one rule for one and another for everyone else. It can't just be bad when we know the person.
Understandably, Brad is now calling for people to report and get removed any links to this unreleased material, and that's great. But if Brad's now going to be an advocate for unreleased and leaked material being online, then let's hear it louder for the people at the back for all of the unreleased Michael Jackson material. If Chicago 1945 from your hard drive is a violation of Michael's privacy and shouldn't be out there and shouldn't be public, then neither should She Got It, neither should Hot Street, neither should Nightline, and you should be calling for the removal of those as well, not only the ones that affect you and your seminars.
Yep.
Because this is about Michael, and this goes back to the point we were making before, that Michael keeps getting left out of the discussion. It's been a violation of the material that Brad had. Okay, but there's still material that is Michael's that Brad didn't have that's being violated on a daily basis. But people can seem to make a separation between the two, and I don't really understand how that's happening. Because we know that this guy stole a laptop. Well, we don't know that somebody wasn't held at gunpoint for Hot Street. So just because we don't know, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't sympathize with the fact that that is a stolen piece of material as well.
Every leak, even when Escape came out, Michael was alive, and it was leaked, and we were all out here listening to it happily. And we also know how annoyed Michael was about that. So I don't know, where was this energy back then? Where was this energy when Hold My Hand got leaked?
Because obviously there's this question about, now that it's out there, should you listen to it or should you not? My personal stance on it is, I didn't steal it. I'm not involved in the theft of it. I didn't put that material out there, but it's out there and it's not coming down, right? You can't put the genie back in the bottle. I'm not going to listen to Chicago 1945 because it's everywhere. And I am a fan of Michael first and foremost. And yes, I understand all the ramifications of it, the way it's leaked and the theft and all the rest of it. And that is wrong. And I stand by that. But it's out in the world now. So unless the estate and Sony are going to do a mass removal over the entire internet and get it all taken down,
they can.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
They can easily register it and they can take it down. As long as it stays on YouTube, I'm listening to it. It's getting streamed. If you want to release it officially, I'll be happy to stream it on Spotify and you'll get paid, boo.
Char, what's your thoughts on this? Because I know that you personally choose not really to listen to any leaked material.
Yes, but that is actually for a completely different reason. It's actually nothing to do with my beliefs about how leaks are put online or released. I just choose to do that because often when the estate release an official project, which hasn't been often in my life since Michael died, there's been a few things, but it's very rare to get never heard before material. So I choose not to listen to the leaks so that in 5 years and 10 years when I'm having a shit day and I want to hear new Michael, it's as if I keep that for myself as like a treat. So,
but that's nice though. That's really nice.
That's the only reason that I don't listen. Occasionally, like I listened to Chicago 1945. I wasn't keen on the song, but I loved the vocals, and I know that here we go. It's Carousel 2.0.
You're damn right it is. I'm sorry, Chicago 1945 is one of the best songs to have come out in recent years. I really believe that. It's Michael. It's quintessential Michael.
But the reason that meant when Thriller 40 came out that I had not heard most of those songs. So it was a totally new experience for me. And that's the reason I chose not to listen to leaks.
What are your thoughts and feelings on what you've seen and heard that's come out of the Brad leaks?
Loved every minute of footage that I have seen. I think because someone made this point on Twitter actually, and I think it's a great point. Michael as the musician, the producer in the studio is the Michael that the estate talk about all the time and we rarely ever see. We never ever see Michael, well, not never. Let me say that again. We don't often see Michael fully at work in the studio singing his heart out. It's rare to see that. And the small glimpses that we have gotten of it, like in the Bad 25 documentary and then in the Thriller 40 documentary, we've loved. So to have a lot of that, and especially of the songs like Childhood, They Don't Care About Us, Will You Be There, I've loved to see Michael in the studio in a way that we don't often get to see him.
I'm actually I don't even know what I like the most, the leaked music or the footage. I think the footage, because you get Michael with his little Mickey Mouse watch, which I think everyone should see that because it actually shows real Michael, and him just being so excited about childhood when he's listening back, and he's like, I was living for it. I didn't even know I wanted it, but I needed that footage. And obviously we got Chicago 1945, and it's just, I'm living for it. As long as it's on YouTube, as long as it's on Twitter, I will be watching it and I will be streaming it because because I don't hate Brad. I have nothing against Brad. I don't know Brad. It's
I don't know
because
her.
I don't know her. It's purely because I love Michael and I'm here for Michael, and I have been here for Michael since I was 6. So it is what it is.
I think we've discussed this as well. The Mickey footage in particular, it's so important that the public see that footage in particular, because Michael has a watch with Mickey Mouse on. In the background is a picture of Mickey Mouse on the wall. Michael's in a room with 3 grown men. They are talking about putting the album together. There are no children around. There are no outside cameras around. And as we know, clearly this footage was never sort of meant to see the light of day. So it's private footage. And it shows Michael in his childlike innocence in a room of grown adults. So in the last sort of 3 years where we've constantly heard this BS that it's like Michael would like set up a theme park in Neverland to entice children and take something children like and use it to entice them in. We are seeing that even in the privacy when no one is around, he's acting like a child over a Mickey Mouse watch. Like, this is my Mickey watch.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows that actually that is who he was. And so that footage is so important for the public, in my opinion. And that's why I'm glad that that piece of footage is out there, because I think it justifies who he was when the doors were closed. And I might just add, I bought the Mickey watch on eBay because I loved it so much.
Listen, all the Mickey watches are gone.
They are.
Skyrocketed, all these vintage ones. I favorited few, and I get notification. Your favorite item has been sold like every hour.
No, but I completely agree with what you're saying about this sort of footage, and this is what we needed when we were in the battlefields in 2019. That narrative of Michael was some sort of groomer who surrounded himself in childlike things to lure children in, and it was all made so sinister. And that small piece of footage is such a perfect example of how that was him at his happiest and his true nature. And to be honest, this might be really cringy, but I felt quite close to him afterwards, if that makes sense. Like, I felt like I had seen him in a way that was just so him.
Yeah, I agree. And he looked happy, he looked involved, he looked interested in what he was doing. And there was a real kind of father-son dynamic between Bruce and Michael when they're sat on that sofa and they're reading together the track list for Dangerous, which included Blood on the Dance Floor and Someone Put Your Hand Out. And there was a real kind of like father-son vibe, and it was amazing.
I absolutely loved the Will You Be There footage. See, just even watching Michael listen to it.
Yep.
And he was, he's loving it. He's like, it was just, I just loved it. And to watch him watch the choir, another amazing video. I think I'm so in awe of him that I just love to watch him watch others and see him really enjoy things. And it's so rare to see.
Yep.
That being said, though, there has been so many people, actually more than I was expecting, saying, nope, not watching it. I refuse to watch it. The way it's been done is not right, blah, 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 and that's the reason for not watching it. However, fans feel that they have some sort of entitlement to this footage, but then also play the morality card when it's released in this way.
Yeah.
It baffles me.
I think the it's difficult because exactly that we don't know the stories behind everything that's out there. So to say, well, I'm not going to watch this and I am going to watch this. Yeah, I remember when there was that footage that Brett Ratner shot of Michael in an interview, and he's filming from like next to him, and everybody absorbs that and everybody shares that all over the place. Did Michael approve for that to be filmed? Did Michael approve for that to be out? There is countless. I always question whether he did, but there is countless pieces of music and footage out there, and even photographs that Michael said no. A good example of that is the photos that Michael had taken for the History album cover. so that Diana could sculpt the statue. That was a work for hire deal. And those photos were not to be out there. And Michael turned to Diana Walzak and said, make sure those photos never get out. And then years later, the photographer has them on sale and fans are buying them. So the kind of, it's difficult because sometimes, like, I understand morality, but sometimes it feels like people are standing too close to a magnet with their morality compass. If we're going to look at morality and we're going to look at right and wrong, I think you said it earlier, Shah, a theft is a theft. You can't kind of find a grey area in it and go, well, these ones came from Brad, so that's inappropriate. But these ones, we don't know where they came from, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Like that lady said that she's friends with Brad, and they were like, "Oh, that was different times." That doesn't make any.
No, and I think the argument for that is pretty weak, to be honest, because in 2023, when something gets stolen and leaked, you have TikTok to make a statement, you have Instagram to put your statement out, you have Facebook, all of which Brad has utilized to the full extent, and well done to him for doing so and for sharing that story and what's happened there. When Hot Street was leaked, we didn't have any of that. Mm-hmm. So just because the time was different, it doesn't mean that the person wasn't still hurt or the victim of a theft or a crime. You just don't know about it. So you can't make differences.
I'm sorry, but I don't buy it. These people that are saying that they've not heard the leaks and they refuse to watch it. You've watched it, you've listened to it, just like I have. Secondly, as you said, you can't find a gray area. You can't tell me when you've been there since 2002 and you've heard every single leak.
Do you think responsibility in this scenario goes further than that of the thief? So there's not been I don't feel like there's been any accountability from the event organizers to say, do you know what? We also need to look at our practices. I use this example on Twitter, right? It's like if a thief burgles a jewelry store, but the jewelry store was left unlocked, the thief is obviously in the wrong for committing the crime, but the jewelry store need to assess the fact that they left the door unlocked. Yes. And they need to take accountability for the fact that they left that door unlocked. And in their public statement, they would say, we have been burgled and we feel violated and everything's been taken from us. However, we left the door unlocked and we now need to assess how we can do better in the future. And so for me, when you've got Michael Jackson's material on a laptop and on a hard drive at a private event, if you are leaving the room, why aren't you taking that stuff with you? Why are you not password protecting it? Why are you not ensuring that door is locked? There's got to be some accountability here as well, that if you take Michael Jackson's material into the public domain out of your home, you need to be sure that it is not left unattended at any point. And to go, well, I'm not saying you said this, but to kind of be like, well, I thought I was in good company, doesn't work. That argument does not work. That's like leaving the keys in your car and going into the shop and saying, well, I thought everyone in the car park could be trusted. And then you come back and your car's gone.
No, what I don't understand with that as well, that now we know, I mentioned this earlier, we know it was a MacBook, which is iCloud protected. So if someone came in right now, broke into my house and took this laptop, and I have something important in here, I can get on my phone or get on my any other Apple device and erase it. I can erase it, I can lock it, it will be a potato. You won't be able to use it. So I don't know why has that not happened. I don't know why the laptop, as you said, it didn't have a password. How? You have so much information on that laptop, on that hard drive. How do you not protect it? I don't understand how has all of that. I don't know. We've missed all of this, and no one's actually questioning it. But when it came to convention, and I remember that song getting leaked, the only people that got blamed for it was you and Seb. I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah, I know. I remember it very well.
This time, Brad has nothing to do with it. It's more like, oh, poor Brad, it happened to Brad.
Well, that's an interesting point that you make, because, I think there is responsibility on all sides when a song gets leaked. When I'm reading statements and stuff to the effect of my material has been stolen, I'm like, hang on, Michael's material has been stolen. Can we just focus on who? Because a fan said on Twitter, like, well, we know Brad, but we don't know who Hot Street was stolen from. No, but we know that Michael Jackson is affected by both.
Yes. To me, it begs a question about fans too, though. Because, as you said, fans going to these events, and I mean, of course, MJ Big did the huge article on it. Fans going to these events and consistently pushing boundaries. And I mean, we talked about it in the convention episode, you've experienced it nearly every time. Why do fans do this? Why do they do it? Why do you genuinely think they do this? Do you think it is all about likes, or do you think they genuinely have the rest of the fans' best interest at heart? Like, why do you think they do it? Because the great point that you've just made there is it's really not to do with Michael at all.
Well, so I obviously don't agree with what's happened and the rest of it. Seeing like the guy taunting Brad and people going, "Ha ha, f you, Brad," and all that, like that, yeah. I don't think is right, and I think that's childish and disgusting behaviour because, like we said at the beginning, a crime has been committed here. A crime against Brad because his laptop's been stolen, and a crime against Michael Jackson because his music has been put out there. But also all of those people that worked or wrote those songs. And I'm not talking about Brad, because Brad was an engineer in those sessions. I'm talking about people that wrote and composed those songs. People like Saida, her a cappella of I Just Can't Stop Loving You is out there now. Now, knowing Saida, I'm sure she's really happy. and it is really cool because you get to hear Michael in the room next door literally singing as loud as her. But she hasn't been consulted on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her voice. And so there are kind of these questions that like, I just find that every time you kind of move over one, there's another question that pops up about legitimacy, about who has rights, who doesn't have rights, who approved it, who didn't, who's involved, who isn't. And I don't think, obviously, we'll never get to the full scale of it, but this is a debate channel, and we're just debating what we understand to be the case and what we've seen and what we're interpreting from everything that's going on.
Yeah, and quite honestly, and maybe this is too honest to say, when I am watching the footage, I'm not really thinking about that guy stealing it from Brad. I'm thinking about Michael, and I'm thinking about what I'm seeing. And that's not, that makes me think, am I being dismissive of how this is a crime, and am I being selfish in the way that, I'll just watch Michael anyway, don't care how I get it? I don't know. It's like you say, every time we walk further down, there's another stone unturned, and there's more things to talk about. And to be honest, I particularly think this episode's been quite difficult because the more it goes on, the more I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, oh God. I think people care because it's Brad, when people should care no matter who it comes from.
I think you summed that up perfectly. That is literally what I've been trying to say for like a week. But yeah, I think that's exactly it. People should care regardless. The feeling that Escape leaked and that Hot Street leaked and that Nightline leaked, and I've got a whole list here. I Am the Loser, Serious Effects, Slapstick, Dream Away. All of these songs have leaked, and that should be equally condemned. If you are anti-leak because it's Brad, you're anti-leak, period, in my opinion.
Yep.
And that's really, it's not for me to tell other people how to find grey area, but really that's the kind of long and short of it. You can't find a nuance in this. You really can't.
No.
So do you think that this stuff that's leaked would have a long-term impact on Michael's potential future work or legacy?
If the estate are aware of this and they know exactly what's being shown, that would suggest that they maybe don't have plans to use it.
Yeah.
If this was footage that was planned to have been used in an upcoming project, then maybe it could affect the legacy because projects that were once planned won't go ahead. But as far as we know, that's not the case. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I will say that I think, I mentioned this to Ilya the other day, I think one thing I am grateful for to see the footage in its raw form is that it's not left down to the decision of a documentary maker or the estate to decide what we what we would find relevant and what we wouldn't, right? Yeah. So, for example, they may see that Mickey Mouse footage and go, like, that's irrelevant. No one cares about that.
Yeah.
because we know that the estate never ask us what we actually think and feel and tell us how we should play. So I think, and it's testament to that the Mickey watch has literally sold out on eBay because fans have gone and bought it from seeing that, because Michael still has this hold over us, this like chokehold all these years later. But I think there is, it kind of, the estate can't really sort of say, well, we'd have never use that anyway, because it's like, well, we've seen it now. So
to be fair, I do think they do like to recycle stuff their own way, and I do believe if there was a history anniversary documentary coming or something related to Dangerous, I think we would still get those footage in there. And those documentaries aren't for us. Those documentaries are for general public and, general sales for the estate. So yeah, I do think if they were to release anything, we would still get that recycled and preferably remastered so we can see it better.
Well, I wouldn't hold out much hope of that, because half the stuff that they put on Thriller 40 has this weird muffly sound. So remastering isn't a strong point. Do you think between us and between this conversation there is any differences in our opinion on the entire situation, or do you think we're all pretty much on the same wavelength?
I think we're pretty much on the same page. And same page being, this is happening to Michael, this has happened to Michael. And
the material, I think it's the property theft has happened to Brad. The material theft has happened to Michael. The whole thing is a criminal act. And now it's kind of like been dumped on the fans to try and find morality within it, or to question their own decisions about whether they should listen to it. And it's like, that shouldn't be a burden that's placed on us. We weren't involved in the theft. We weren't involved in the leaking, and it's now out there.
Also, if you still want to go to Brad's seminar, you really should, because at the end of the day, there's so much stuff that makes absolutely no sense. It's there without context, and I'm just listening to it like
that's the thing. And he'll break it down, and he'll talk about it, and he will explain the process behind it. And some people love that kind of story that goes with the audio. Some people love that story behind the video. Others don't. Others would prefer to have just it is the way it is. Charles, what was you going to say?
Just what I was going to say there was, I do think we are on the same page. Near enough with everything. I think for once, and everyone knows me, I think for once I am actually finding it quite difficult to really knuckle down to my opinion on this, because there's so many questions, as we've said throughout, that keep popping up. And it's, to be honest, it's made me kind of evaluate myself and think, like when I'm listening to these leaked songs, I'm really not thinking about theft, and I'm really not thinking about it being being a crime. And the most important part that I think you've said about this whole thing is that Michael is forgotten in it all.
Yeah, it's I mean, people that have power to take all of this away from us, like take it down from YouTube, and they're not doing anything. So there's this question as well. Say, if you think about it, is it really not okay for me to be listening to this because it's still there?
But yeah, you're right. If they're not doing, and they haven't done anything, they haven't even spoke about it, then everyone kind of saying to us like, oh well, you shouldn't listen to it, you shouldn't do this. It's like, well, how about we get Branca on it to start taking it down? Why, if the estate are endorsing Brad's seminars, shouldn't the estate be equally involved in getting it taken down?
Yeah.
What do you think should and will happen next?
I think we just move, and it's not really my interest what Brad does, but I think Brad is gonna add more material if he can to his seminars, and he'll just carry on as.
Judging by the way that his statement came across, I would think that he's probably going to take some time and rethink how these seminars are done. Maybe think about security and how to prevent something like this happening in the future.
Password on a laptop.
But I also think that there's really, I mean, you know what it's like. You put something on the internet and that's it. It's there forever now. So, I to be honest, I think no matter how hard people may try to get this stuff removed, it's going to keep cropping up now.
Yeah, I mean, people have this hard drive, never me. But
I mean, I think if there was things like, so for example, as we said a few times, he was told he couldn't play the childhood material anymore. But if that was still on the laptop or the hard drive, then it sounds like everything he had was on that laptop and hard drive. So if he carries on with the sessions, who knows if he's got anything more sort of unreleased. But if he's going to just talk about the work that he worked on with Michael and use the multi-tracks to explain how a song is put together, then maybe, that will be his way forward. I think, I know that it always comes across like we do a lot of estate bashing, but again, we're a debate channel and there are things we like by the estate and things we don't, yada, yada, yada. But I think if what that fan on Twitter has said is true, that the estate are involved in Brad, then I want to look to them as to kind of, why is it okay for somebody who can pay £300 to experience Michael's multi-tracks in a studio setting with unreleased music, but yet the estate don't do that at Michael's birthday party or do an online session with everybody to access it? So I think there's that question of kind of, elitism that is coming up again, that I would really like to think that I would like to think the estate aren't behind that and aren't in agreement with that, because Michael was never, ever about that. And I'm not just being like, oh, Michael wouldn't like. Michael made sure that everybody in the world could access his music. Even in countries, if you remember when the Iron Curtain came down in 93, Michael was one of the first Western artists to go to Russia. Michael did the history tour and went to places like Tenerife, the little island of Tenerife, to do a tour, because Michael made himself accessible to the world. He wanted the richest and the poorest to enjoy his, but he understood that there was a base level. And I feel like all those project managers and all those people that worked with Michael back then understood that there was, you get the people in at the bottom and everybody else will come as well. But if you only aim for the top, everybody below that can't come. That's why This Is It tickets were £50, starting price £50 in 2009. So we're not talking that long ago. And yet the estate are happy to work with it. Like, okay, well, you can hear this incredible material and see this incredible, never before seen footage, but only if you have like £200-300. And I think that kind of, that's a question that's come out of this for me, that why is the estate happy with that? Unless they're being paid. And of course, I think the most important thing to come out of that is that the person that stole the laptop is held to account.
Oh, for sure.
Because, yeah, that's a crime and that needs to be addressed. And we as a fan community need to ensure that we are not, I've seen a lot of people encouraging him and all the rest of it. And it's like, those are literally children. I think a little bit of self-reflection there, which I know, as Shah, you said you've done, and we've also done, like, we've all done this bit of self-reflection. I think there needs to be a lot more of that.
It's been really difficult to talk about, I think this is really hard to speak about because there's such mixed opinions within every element of this discussion.
Yeah. And I think there's also a lot of confusion, and I hope the confusion gets cleared up. I saw somebody say the other day on Twitter, Brad owns the material. And I was like, well, no, I'm sorry, he doesn't own the material. Those multi-tracks, he doesn't own the multi-tracks to Human Nature. He didn't even work on that album. He doesn't own the demo to I Can't Help It. He never worked on that album. He doesn't own Chicago 1945. Michael and Steve do. So,
or is it?
Sorry?
Is it ABC or I Want You Back that got leaked?
I Want You Back, yeah. Which even Michael didn't own. It's his voice, but he didn't even own the rights to that. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be cleared up. And I hope in the coming days that people will speak out who have that information, not just try and paper over the cracks of opinions and stuff, but actually speak out and tell us the truth behind so many things.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Big MJ Debate. Please be sure to let us know what you guys think in the comments. And if you like, give us a like, share and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, which will we will leave.
And Instagram.
And stealing is wrong.
Stealing is bad.
We can't say it enough.